An IDB is a small local authority, effectively, that has been created for the unique job of managing water levels and flood risk management in England and Wales. We find drainage boards predominantly in the lowest lying areas, covering about 1.2 million hectares, which represents about 10% of the land area of England.
As a farmer, I pay a drainage rate. I get sent a bill once a year, which goes towards obviously the engineering and office services that we need in any organisation, but also to the maintenance and clearance of ditches and drains in the area to keep the water flowing. There's a knowledge and a feeling that the drainage of the fens is very, very important to us. It's we can't farm if we're underwater. People can't live underwater. We need that maintenance of the system, which has been developed over the years. It's part of your blood, it's part of what you are. I wouldn't be here if this land wasn't drained. No one would be here. It would be marsh. Yes, it would be wonderful, we'd have some wildfowl, but we wouldn't have anything to eat.
Personally, I think it's about managing water for there to be the right amount in the right place at the right time. So for us in Lythe Valley, I've seen this valley completely underwater, like a lake, and I've seen this valley not have enough water. I've seen the fields sort of brown and burnt, scorched because it's been so dry. The answer is not draining and removing water, as is, it's not kind of keeping it. It's, right water, right place, right time.
You get into a rhythm, and it once you've been on it a while, it seems to come so natural. It's part of you. It's like an extra arm. I find them very easy to use once you've been on them. It's like anything. The more you're on it, the easier it is. We keep the water flowing. We prevent flooding on land, and we obviously, if the drains are running into the dike, it's taking the water off the land. So if we keep the dikes low and sludged out, the farmers are very happy.
There's surprisingly quite a number of people who live in houses throughout the fens, completely unrelated to the main beneficiary, which is agriculture and the arable farmers and businesses that rely on the work of the IDBs to keep this area, I say drained, but we also sort of manage the water level as well, so we provide water as well. This is an entirely man-made scenario, really, to be fair. If it wasn't for man over the last 280 odd years, it would be just permanently wet fen. But obviously over the last 280 years, through various means, it's been drained. So now you've got a multi-million pound industry that relies on the boards to manage their water for them. We're sometimes hampered a bit, really, by people just thinking that drainage boards just pump water out. And it comes as a big surprise to many people, even within the industry, that we actually manage water level, and we have to manage it both ways, both coming into the fens and out of the fens.
So, you're expected to work with any sort of adapted piece of equipment on it, doing all sorts of jobs really. It's quite good because it keeps it different. I've never worked inside in my life, well 2 weeks I think I did in all my life. I've always worked outside, so Even in the winter and the rain, it doesn't bother me. I'd rather be doing that than stuck in an office, to be fair. Well, to tell you the truth, when I first got the job, I'd never heard of IDBs, as nobody ever does. And it's amazing, you know, they hear of lots of other things, but you speak to people and they go, oh, I'd never, you know, I used to be a play area inspector and nobody knew that play areas were ever looked after by anybody. They thought they just were there. It's just the same with these rivers and becks. People think they're just there and they go, oh, didn't realise people look after this, or cut the grass, or do this, or do that. And, you know, certainly with, you know, the hot topic of climate change and everything that's going on at the moment, I think it's going to become more important in the future.
At the moment we're doing our summer maintenance regime, and we've already started. We've flailed, mown and cut the grass on the side of the banks with a tractor, and now it's time. The digger comes along. He's got a 3 metre basket on which has a knife, a cutting knife on the edge of it, so that enables it, like at present, to go underwater, and he'll start the night in cutting mode, come through the water, cutting off the weed, you know, at the base, at the bottom of the drain, and then bring it up onto the bank and then tip it out on the side. Yeah, there it goes. There's the cutter in action, and just brings it nicely through, nice and smooth, and then up onto the bank top. And of course that's clearing all the debris out the bottom of the drain. Oh, it's vital to keep these watercourses open and keeping the water flowing. Without it, Phillips 66 would cease to exist in, you know, producing petroleum, that is for sure. So it is definitely vital for the area that you keep the IDB courses clear.
Like it's out here. You know, I'd rather be out here than stuck in an office or countryside. Farmers, farmers are different, but the characters, so you get on with them that way. You know, you get some miserable sods, but then you get other ones that are, you know, you're a right good laugh with them. You can have a good laugh. So yeah, it's a variety. It's good, yeah.
So what we can see here is the flailing operation. He's flailed the working side bank. He's then going to come back and take a breed on the other side bank, or maybe two, to take the vegetation back on the far side, ready for the weed cutting to come through and the maintenance to carry on with the excavator.
My grandfather used to have a farm, and I was driving a tractor since 7 years old, so obviously I'm machine mad. So yeah, my grandfather was getting to the age where there wasn't going to keep the farm, so I decided to look for another job, and this came up, like at the drainage board, driving the tractor at the time, and I applied for that and got that and never looked back. And I enjoy the outdoor, you see, so it's, well, what better office could you have? You know, it's everything, every day is different.
Well, this is one of the drainage board ditches which we've been managing in a sensitive way. So basically it means we mow late, we let all the natural plants flower, go through the full process, produce seeds, and then by cutting late, we replenish the seed stock. We're providing food for mammals. We're obviously providing nectar during the flowering time, but at the same time, the ditch is being kept in good condition for its primary purpose, which is the movement of water.
Well, we get a large percentage of our money actually comes from councils. The councils do actually contribute quite a large amount of money towards us, so it's not just farmers paying for it, it is paid through council levies as well.
Before machines, how these drains were maintained. You know, they're mow, and as part of, they didn't just mow it, they sort of threw it up onto the bank as well out of the way. You know, the flies and the mud and the water, and oh, what a job. But they kept this fen clean.
We'll be doing what we call winter bushing work, so any trees that's grown over the drains and such like that, we'll be removing those. We'll be doing the slip repairs where any slips have occurred on the drains, which we had lots and lots of those last year because of the high water levels.
The water's got to go somewhere and it will find a way, so usually it's better to try and... These becks and rivers have been here for centuries and centuries and they know where they're going. We just need to keep them on track and keep them tidy and keep them maintained, and that's pretty much what the board does, I think, you know, encompasses it, you know.
Funding formula for grants for upgrading pumping stations is very geared towards numbers of houses. It doesn't value highly enough agricultural land, which in our book is merely a factory without a roof.
You know, in the black and white days when these systems were designed and built, it was thought of predominantly as land drainage. The most important bit was the pump. It was only ever thought to get water out, but obviously now with climate change and the change in rainfall patterns, actually providing water is a more important issue.
I think one of the biggest challenges we face is the ageing infrastructure of some of our pumping stations. Undoubtedly, a lot of the schemes that were put in the 70s and 80s on the back of high DEFRA food production targets and a concern after the Second World War to see agricultural production massively increased in this country. Those schemes really are now needing refurbishment. We need new pumps, we need new pumping stations. We perhaps would put pumps that work in a different way.
And this would be your summer feed. And that's for wet fencing, for the cattle drinking. Well, that's your tilter. It literally, as it says on the tin, he tilts. You adjust it with your drill or a key, so you can adjust the level that way. You've got the fine control to get your level here like this, and then you can pull the top one up, then you can pull the bottom one up, and you can drain the whole system down if you want to. If the farming practice ever change in the future, like it used to be drained right down. It is a very flat system. It is called the Somerset levels for a reason. Traditionally the levels would have been dropped right down, and that's called right down on the mud, and you will still get landowners today asking for the water to be right down on the mud, and it's as low as it can go.
Drainage boards have been required to become part of a much larger industry, so that we focus now not just on land drainage but also on managing water levels more generally and providing a flood protection service, a flood advisory service to our local communities.
I've always described the Internal Drainage Board as a local authority. We are a small local authority, maybe not widely known outside of our little catchment, and not widely known to those people who don't come across us year on year or day on day. I pride myself and you know, I'm very proud of the board and the workforce that we can take public money in and turn that into maintenance as efficiently as possible and deliver a service back to the community.
When we do open days or we attend Lincolnshire Show or the Woodall Show, we explain why we're doing what we do. And even though some people say, well, I've lived here 30 years and didn't know you existed, well, they tend to understand the benefits of the boards.
I think the people who sit on the individual boards are very aware of their own area. As I say, I'm really aware of my own area on the FOSS board because I've been on there for a long time, and I've made it a point of knowing where the watercourses are, how far afield they are, the whole geographical area of it.
You know when the water starts getting high, you see people going around in their high-vis jackets, you see them walking around closing the flood doors and all this kind of stuff. And so I thought, well, coming here you'd find even more about the thoughts that are behind those kind of actions. And also, and no, I haven't been bribed by a piece of cake to say this, to further enhance the thought that for all the controversy, you know that when the water does start rising, you have people who've thought it through and know what they're doing, who are going to be there doing the best they can.
That's the frustration I get really, because you go to the great and the good and you hear them talk and you think, well, you just don't get it. I know they're politicians, bless them, and they have to pick up a brief very quickly, but some are better at that than others.
On matters of flood risk, I think we are one of the expert bodies, and to me it seems a crying shame, if not neglect, that IDBs are not a statutory consultee in the planning process, because we know our local areas, and when housing development is planned, when business property development is planned, surely those strong local voices that know the local land, know the feelings of local people, and have ambition for the area to develop in terms of economic prosperity, but equally know where the boundaries should be and how best to minimise the risk of flood.
Now what we're finding with rainfall patterns that we get today, it isn't just a wet winter we're dealing with wet summers as well.
I've noticed personally, I think other people have as well, we obviously work adjacent to the River Witham. Our depot is right on the River Witham bank. Watching the river level, because we watch that, I drive on the riverbank every single day, so I know what the level is in the river. And I've noticed now, when we get a rain event now, that river comes up much quicker. If we got a lot of rain, say, further north, it will usually take a couple of days at least before you really notice the difference. Now it's almost, not instant, but it's within a day or so, you can tell the river levels are coming up very quickly to what they used to do.
Having the land flooded is a massive inconvenience. When I first came back to the farm, it was considered a 1 in 50 year event. It was rapidly turned into a 1 in 25 year event. I would say now, if not every second year, certainly every third year, it would be an expectation. Given what's happening globally, I think it's almost certainly going to become an annual event. There's a bit of a myth around land drainage, and that is that land drainage increases flooding. Land drainage actually decreases flooding. The whole of these fields, which have got drainage in, they act as a sponge. If they're waterlogged, so they don't have land drainage, there's no capacity. That's where you get an issue with flooding. So properly managed drainage, of which we manage within our fields, and the drainage board manage the ditches, all working together provides resilience to flooding rather than adding to flooding.
You know, we don't have the luxury of heavy rainfalls and it's soaking into the ground. We get quick, instant storms, which is directed then straight into the watercourses. So you can get a deluge of water pretty much instantly, instead of it taking hours for it to get into the watercourse. So if you do get a heavy rainstorm, you're prone to flooding.
Farmland, obviously it's urban areas as well, we've got to keep them clear from flooding. I mean, that's one of the main things with urban areas, you keep them clear from flooding, so we keep the water running away.
I think they do a very good job. I think there's a strong argument for that more localised knowledge when it comes to water management, not just below the 5 metre contour line, which is the area of influence for drainage boards. I think that local catchment knowledge, then combined with the wider catchment understanding, is going to be the way for water management, undoubtedly. So that they perform a vital function.
We've seen changes in weather patterns that are testing all our current assets to the full capacity. When we do planning responses, we always use the phrases that relay that these watercourses are running at full capacity during flood events. So we've got from a point where these assets were designed to cope with the flows that are coming down during flood events, and now at capacity. So if we are going to see climate change continue, then yes, we can see these defences and assets becoming overwhelmed.
They've got to be part of our resilience planning for the future, and they've had a very sound role up till now. I would like to hope that they will continue to have that. My concern would be that they're not a sexy service. They're not something like a high-speed rail line or a new bridge to Ireland or something you can see, feel, touch and kick. It's not perhaps something that would get politicians excited.
It's not looking good. A politician can't come and stand next to it and say, look how pretty this drain looks, because it's not shiny and it's not new. Yes, we're spending, is it 5.2 billion extra on flood defences? A lot of that money could have been spent on maintenance, which would save us having to spend all the money on capital projects.
But it's one of those quieter, unseen services that really is valued by the people who know what we do